Anneliese, very good morning to you. And Anneliese, you want to talk about the British economy, and I know the Shadow Chancellor is in Washington talking about the same thing. But you guys have a vision, how to restructure it, what would you put at the centre of a new British economy? Good morning to you.
Good morning. Well, yes, we do have that long-term plan for the UK's economy. We're determined that instead of our country going backwards, which so often it has over the last 13 years, we want our economy to be the most highly growing, have the most sustainable growth in all of the G7. We're determined to achieve that. And Rachel's setting out plans today on how she'll make sure that happens. Our Green Prosperity Plan, for example, also our industrial strategy working in partnership with business, our reforms to taxation, scrapping business rates, those measures would ensure that we have that high sustained growth that we desperately need, because without that sustained growth, we're not going to be seeing the increase in living standards that are so important for families up and down the country. People's living standards in our country have been stagnating or going backwards under the Conservatives. Labour would reverse that.
And some good news this morning in terms of the headline rate of inflation down and out of double digits for the first time since August last year, 8.7%. The government very pleased about that. I wonder if, under Gordon Brown, you made the Bank of England independent. Lots of difficult questions being asked of the governor there yesterday about their management of inflation. Do you think they're doing a good job?
Well, it's really important, actually, that the Bank of England can do their job and do it independently. And we've seen many economic institutions being unfortunately undermined by the Conservatives over the last 13 years, whether we're talking about the Bank of England or we're talking about the Office for Budget Responsibility, the fiscal watchdog. We really need to be re-establishing our economic credibility, our economic security for the future. And that's what Rachel's focused on. The last time that we had a UK Chancellor in the United States, it was Kwarteng. He, of course, was recalled back to London to be sacked, and it was when the pound was tanking, when the mortgage crisis for British families was starting. Labour's got a very different approach, and it is based on rebuilding that economic credibility. That includes an independent Bank of England.
Right, here's a good one for you. Interest rate rise. Is it time to put the brakes on, or would you still agree that the Bank of England should go out there and raise those levels again to stop us all spending, which it's certainly doing?
Well, look, ultimately, that is a decision for the Bank of England. And I really think the big question for the Conservative government is why they're not taking action that is within their area to deliver, rather than perhaps criticising other institutions. Why aren't we seeing, for example, the Conservative government introducing a proper windfall tax? They could do that, use the proceeds from that to tackle the cost of living crisis. Why aren't we seeing them taking action on food prices? Almost going up by near 20% at the moment, a huge increase on people's weekly food shop. And yet no action coming from the Conservatives on this. Again, Labour set out actions we would be taking right now to be tackling that food price inflation. So, there's a huge amount that government should be focused on delivering right now. The Bank of England will deliver what's within its independent mandate. It's their decision what choices they take.
Okay.
But there's a lot the government could and should be doing that it's failing to do.
What about these fresh allegations about lockdown rules being broken by former Prime Minister Boris Johnson? Does it matter? We knew he broke rules before.
Well, I think what really matters here is the amount of taxpayer money that's going to fund Boris Johnson's legal bills, into the hundreds of thousands of pounds now. And yet, Rishi Sunak seems to be perfectly happy with this arrangement. He seems to be too weak to stand up to Boris Johnson over his legal bills. And of course, Boris Johnson's making a lot of money at the moment from different speech appearances, so surely he could pay his own legal bills. But we've seen the same pattern. We saw the same pattern with Dominic Raab, the same pattern, of course, with Suella Braverman when she broke security rules, and now other allegations about her behaviour. Rishi Sunak just seems to be too weak when it comes to those interests in his party, and he's not putting the interests of our country, and particularly British taxpayers, first.
I just want to ask you finally, before we let you go, about the situation in Cardiff, these riots on Monday night. A really confused picture about what happened. It certainly seems as though the Labour Police and Crime Commissioner was misinformed or deliberately misinformed people yesterday morning. It's not clear what happened when he said that there were no police involved in this incident where 2 teenagers died. Arguably, that prompted huge reaction from the crowds in Ely. What do you make of all of this?
I think the most important thing to say is just this is a dreadful, dreadful incident, and I think all of our sympathies would be with the families of the 2 young men who died. Absolutely horrendous situation for them, and I really think their interests should be put at the forefront here. I'm sure there will be an investigation into what's taken place, but I think especially for them, it really is important that we talk about these issues soberly and that we understand what actually happened.